Terrific. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of council of June 19th. Gosh, already June 19th. It being 7:01, I'll call a meeting to order. Council, we have land acknowledgement published in our agenda and an agenda in front of us. Any amendments? I do know, I hope you guys in the gallery are aware there will not be a Black Bear Cub conflict response presentation today. You're here for that. Unfortunately, I guess the presenter is ill, so we'll be hopefully rescheduling that for sometime in July. So council, any other amendments or modifications? A motion to adopt as amended, as in removing the delegation, seconded, all in favor, carried. Without further ado, we go to page 4 of the agenda package, which is our annual report, and just flag for council and the gallery, and I guess anybody who might be online, that we will entertain questions in respect to the annual report during the meeting. So, council, we get to go first. We've seen it a few times, but there's some additions and tied it all together. Anything council would like to raise or comment on? I know you're all here to talk about financial statements. No? Council, anything? Please,
Yes.
Councillor McLaughlin, thank you.
I don't see a report to describe the additions, so if you could just highlight them for us, the changes.
Sure.
We've seen it
Yep.
so many times.
Mhm. Mr. Douglas, I guess, the additions, there's a fair bit of text. I'll ad lib here, but correct me, please. The text on various strategic goals and accomplishments from page 14 onwards, I think is somewhat new. And anything?
Yeah, this is an annual report, so this is all new, really. There are some repeats, which are some of the financial information, but the first, not quite sure, 15 pages would be all new information as this is just coming to council for the first time. So it includes messages, one from the mayor, one CFO, and the chief administrative officer, and additionally goes through our strategic plan, and then includes the financial statements.
Please.
Yeah, so it's not exactly the strategic plan in here. It seems you've maybe expanded on some things to reflect the work that was done. Yeah, I would just encourage people to go by the strategic plan, which is what I think we did start with when we were developing these reports, and then it's evolved to include some of the accomplishments.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
and then,
fine. It's
yeah,
a different report.
Yeah.
This is our annual report. I agree with you. The strategic plan is an important document.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Shepherd? So you like this format because I find the pages, for instance, 14, heading of effective growth, that is a strategic objective. So we listed the strategic objective at the top, and then below bullet point, everything that council did to move to achieve that objective. So actually, I think it's a great format. I'd like to see this. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell, and put your microphone on and pull it down.
Definitely one of those mornings. It's the
Morning.
heat.
One of these
See,
mornings.
it's a morning and it's actually afternoon. Oh, my goodness.
Please.
Anyways, through the chair, just echoing what Councillor Shepherd said, it's great to see this document. And it is really super to see what we have accomplished. Sometimes it's very difficult when you're working through the many challenges and to really sort of step back and celebrate what we have done for our community. So I feel very good about this. It's great to see it. It does show, to our community here that's here tonight, that it shows what the priorities are and some of the things we've done. And it would be great for you to continue to follow this and keep giving us feedback on how we're doing and what's important. So thank you for this.
Okay.
It's a great document.
Thank you. Okay, guess this would be a chance for anybody in the gallery if you're here to ask questions on the annual report. No? And do we have anybody online?
We do have several participants or attendees online, and they're welcome to raise their hand to indicate if they would like to speak.
Hope everybody online heard that. But if you do wish to speak, please raise your hand. Don't be timid, because we'll keep moving if not. Oops. Okay. I don't see any hands, so council, the recommendation from staff, is this the wording that this annual report be considered pursuant to section 99 of the community charter? Okay, somebody would like to move that? Councillor Bell? Seconded, Councillor Shepherd. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Oh, I'm remiss in mentioning Councillor Rowe sends her regrets. He had a late personal matter that keeps her from being with us today. All right, council, without that is done, thank you to staff for putting all that together. And we can then go to page 64, which is the SOFI, so-called SOFI Statement of Financial Information, or receipt. Approval, I will. Oh, for approval to submit, yes. And we have Ms. Allnut here. Council, how would you like to proceed? Yes, Councillor Shepherd.
Well, let's start by moving the recommendations that we approve the recommendations on page 64, 1 and 2.
Good, thank you, and that's seconded. I should ask, did you want to present, Ms. Allnut?
If you don't feel that it's necessary, I don't need to. It was just a brief summary of what
Oh,
you
go
see in
ahead.
the report.
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh. Okay, so good evening. The purpose of this presentation is to have council consider and approve the district's 2023 Statement of Financial Information. Each year, the district is required to file financial information under the provisions of the Financial Information Act within 6 months of year end. This reporting includes schedules for employee and elected official salaries and expenses, severance agreements, payments to suppliers for goods and services, and guarantee and indemnity agreements. That concludes my presentation, and I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Excellent brief report. Thank you. Council? Please, Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I've only got one question and I think I know the answer to it, but on page 72 is sort of the end of the suppliers who received payments exceeding $25,000. And then there's another section below it for payments to suppliers for grants and contributions exceeding $25,000. And the Seashell Downtown Business Association is listed in both, but the second one is only $1,500. So I just seeking a little bit of clarity as how that exceeds $25,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Any?
Thank you through the chair. That's likely an oversight. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Maybe we go to page 65 of the agenda package, just to confirm the third bullet near the top, payment into a trust or any form of income deferral. Was there in fact anything of that nature?
No.
Great. Anything else, council? Always a hot topic, the Sophie. Not, we have a motion. I'll count down. You're studying it intently. 3, 2, 1. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. All right, 5 point, thank you, Ms. Allnut. We'll go to 5.3, and I think we have Ms. Mears with us as well. This is for the municipal hall and library remediation. So council, where we hear from, I'm sure Ms. Mears has a maybe not quite so brief presentation. Anything? Do you have questions first, or you want to hear from staff? Hey, wow, great. You're
Perfect.
on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here for the endorsement of the award for the contract for Phase 1 of the building envelope remediation to, if I can say this right, Signia Construction. They were currently Golden Globe in the value of $1,259,170,000. So $1,259,170. If awarded, this budget would take up Phase 1 and 2 that we have already approved as part of the budget program. If we get the go-ahead, the contractor is ready to go. He would take about 20 weeks, and he's currently working at Green Court. So it's the same contractor. So there are some synergies there. Signia has been around since 1995. They're from Vancouver. Our engineer has worked with them on several projects and recommends them and has reviewed their pricing and their bidding and feels confident on their ability to do this work with a reasonable time frame. I think that's everything I have. If you guys have any questions, I think everything else is in the report. Please ask.
Great, thank you. Maybe, yes, go ahead.
Through the chair, 2 questions. One is on the content of the work. If we're looking at the diagram, Phase 2, if a decision is going to be coming up later on whether to take down the tower or not, is correct? So under this contract, does work have to be done on that area anyway? And if there is a decision to take down the tower, is it wasted money? Thanks.
Great. So maybe,
Yep.
which is Phase 1? Maybe
Right,
start
so
with that.
Phase 1 is the area in red. Is the area in, you
Right.
understand?
No,
Okay,
I think,
keep on going,
I-
okay.
no,
Uh,
no, it's important. This is
yeah,
pretty complex,
is.
so.
Phase 1 is the area in red, so it's the south elevation facing the water. Phase 2 is the tower area, and that will be coming up for discussion next week at COW.
Right.
So it's not, this contract is not part of the tower removal. If you recall, we went this direction so we can start repairing the worst side of the building that we won't be touching right away and not wait another winter.
Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Recognizing that this is eating up all of the budget that was intended for phases 1 and 2. I'm wondering, I don't have the original document in front of me, what the original budget was for Phase 1, and if this quote has any bearing on any sort of cost updates that staff are looking at for future phases. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for the question. Great one. Yes, Phase 1 originally was priced at 900,000 and we're coming at 1,259,000. So it has gone up just over 300,000. These prices are comparable to what's been happening in Vancouver based on our engineers' recent tender prices with the cost of being on the coast. You will see next week, the remainder phases are the ones that we'll be working on next are also going to be reflective of these new costs from getting these new tenders.
Okay, so 40% increase. Wow. Counselor Inkster, sorry, oops, please go ahead.
That's fine.
No,
Yeah, as long as you didn't call.
Counselor Bell after you.
Oh, is that what that, okay. I was just gonna say, as long as you didn't call me Director, because I've heard that at the regional district. It's interesting now, we are about to go down the road of perhaps continuous repairs of this building. You look at the age of this building, based on the fact that Councillor Toth recently had a birthday, this building is a little bit younger than Councillor Toth. Yeah. He was here for the opening, probably got a balloon. I bet you he got a balloon. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that my concern is the costs will continue to go up as we look at some additional issues and, you know, with the building costs, but maybe we'll see some deflation for that next decision package.
Next week?
We're not, are we?
Okay, anyways.
Yeah, I get it. Are we done with the continuous discussion of what to do back there? Are we done with that discussion? So, yeah,
That's, okay, so
Yeah.
we hear something is coming
Yeah.
to committee of the whole next week.
yeah.
And so maybe can you give us a little peek into?
Sure. So next week, we're going to look at the other phases and look at the options for keeping the tower, removing the tower, and what our options are. The concept is that we want to make sure that we're not repairing the building and then renovating it later to accommodate our existing and future growth. So it's kind of like building your house. You're not going to renovate your whole house and then add on to it after. So we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. So we're bringing that forward next week for an information meeting to discuss all of those options. Phase one is unique where we can go ahead and do those works. And it is the worst side. So the tower being the next one. So it's the next decision as a group we need to make.
Okay, just further
Please,
to
yeah.
that, thanks. And I guess I'm assuming based on what happened last time, we've had conversations with the library? No,
Yes, please.
no?
Great question. Yes, the library is very involved. One of the biggest differences you'll see next week is they've actually done a needs assessment too on their space needs like we did. So that will be reflective in the presentation.
Okay,
And the library has been involved in this process.
okay, now, I remember when we looked at the police station, it was built, we were fearful that we would run out of space with the police station, and then they built the satellite police station in Gibson's. So that relieved some of the predicted pressure where we thought we'd have to expand on a building we hadn't paid for yet. So it's just the decisions we have to make as a council on our close by infrastructure. So I look forward to the additional reports. It just seems that we're going to have a lot of costs. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, well, and the 40% scary because presumably that translates to 40% on the phase two as well. So, Councillor Bell.
The chair, that was actually my comment, staggering, 40%. And I think, I mean, there's nothing that we can do about that. I mean, but it is certainly, it's certainly something that we need to keep in mind as we move forward and look at some of these projects, especially particularly this one. But the other one was my question around the library to see if they were involved. So that's great. They've been answered. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, through the chair. I think at the Cal meeting, it'll be a chance to think outside the box in terms of space planning. I know some people I talk to, and I've heard even before when I was running, the cost of staffing, the cost of everything for all the local governments here is really quite a point of contention for some people. And with capital costs going up, operating costs, staffing costs, I think we should do a little bit of out of the box thinking, I guess is the only way I'm really going to say right now, but sharing space, perhaps even sharing staff, find ways that we can get synergies to save the taxpayer some money, given that you know, we are kind of a regional area, but we have all these different local governments. So I think it kind of behooves us to really try and work together to make it work as best as possible for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I got two questions. Is this what I would call a fixed price contract? I'm gonna say through the chair, but not sure how you do that.
Yes, so the work involves the removal of the windows and the exterior elements, so that's the cladding, and the envelope, so the building wrap, and some of the other membranes. What is not a fixed price, but we have unit pricing for, is for the repair of any rot we find. So once you remove all the outside, if there's anything on the inside that's rotten, we have a unit price for that. You do it in this way because you have no idea how much rots behind the wall and you don't want to be charged for all that work that doesn't need to be done. So if there is rot found, you then go per hour and you then monitor how much time it takes for them to do their work.
And that's a good lead into, is SR Engineering going to be then effectively the project manager
They,
overseeing the
uh,
contractor?
so it will be a combination of myself and SR Engineering.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Bell, your microphone is on. Okay, all right. Big number. And so the funding, were the proposal council on page 77 is to take 350,000 from the Growing Communities Fund. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Because we're in fact using up all of the budget for 1 and 2. So. Sorry, just, I'll come back to you in a minute. Thank you. Does everybody follow that? Yeah, yeah, Councillor McLaughlin.
If I could just comment on that through the chair. I mean, is there anywhere else we could take it from? Because it's more about maintaining rather than growing. It's not really to accommodate growth. It's to just maintain what we have. And that is something we should take out of capital reserve. You save money to maintain what you have. Is there no more room for capital reserve? There's nowhere else to take it, because to me, it's a bit of a stretch.
It's a mismatch, yes.
But it's essential work that has to be done if we're going to keep this building and not have it rot, maybe next winter, so.
Mr. Douglas, so
Thank you.
for the Zoom, you're.
Yep, this was what was presented in the budget in the 5-year financial plan. So we're not changing any funding sources from that report or from that process. Yeah, and yes, phase 1 is capturing phase 1 and 2 money, yes.
How much will be left in the Growing Communities Fund if we do follow this process?
I would have to take a look. Yeah, I think it's fairly high, like 1.6 million, something like that.
Before, and then we take 350 out of it?
No, after.
Okay.
I can look while we're.
Please, maybe, I think I'd appreciate that. Councillor Tao?
Thank you. I guess my only comment is that, hoping that we don't use up the project contingency. I presume the project contingency would be, well, actually, I don't know. Would the project contingency be expensed against any one particular funding source, or is it sort of distributed amongst the 3 funding sources? Or, for example, the 16%, if we don't end up spending it, is that coming off of what we're spending out of Growing Community Fund or capital reserve?
Maybe. So,
Yeah.
so perhaps another way, is this in order of where we'll get the funds? First from the capital reserve, second from the Public Works Operating and Maintenance Reserve, and we'll use the Growing Communities to the extent we need to.
Yeah, we can look at it like that, yes, for sure. And the balance at the end of 2024, so this project would be included in this, would be just around $2 million. So
half
right now we have two
or
point three,
something.
so after
All right.
we utilize that.
Yep. Okay, it was 3.4 when we got it, right? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Counselor Inkster?
Thank you. Was going to go back to my notes, but, now that, the Director of Finance has the financial figures of our funds open, it sounds like over there, our capital reserve fund, what would that be at then after this?
I think we're using it.
After 2024, about 200,000. Very
Because we're
close to
taking
200.
1.2 million out of it for this, among other things.
Yep. So we do have another report coming down the pipe that needs to utilize a little bit of that, but, yeah, it'd be about 200 at this point.
That's all that's left in that fund that we've been collecting 3% on that one?
Yes. Please.
Yes, the
Yeah.
3%.
It's
We
not.
spend most of the 3% annually at this point, or budget to spend it.
Mhm. We've not been building a Santa sack of funds.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have these individual projects that we deal with on a, as I mentioned earlier, probably an increasing basis based on the age of some of our buildings. But it looks like we're going to be drawing on other accounts and or other ways of getting money with a larger hit. So just a flag that I'm sure we're all aware of. Thanks.
Yep. I agree with you, and the 3%'s been important to let us do that maintenance, but it may not be enough, which is what every municipality in the country is struggling with. More to say about Calgary in a little later. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. You almost stole the words right out of my mouth. I was just gonna say that capital reserve is, we know through the budget process that it's woefully inadequate for all the things that we know we're gonna have to be paying for in the next 20 years. So hopefully this council and subsequent councils continues to build on that, capital reserve. But for tonight, I'm gonna move the recommendations on page 75 as presented.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? I see a seconder. And I'm sorry, ma'am, do you? Yeah, just, okay, that's different. We had a budget a year or so more ago. Yes, and when we went out for tendering in the last 2 or 3 months, yeah. So it's a current number, and part of why we want to get it done is hopefully prices, well, they can't go up based on this contract, but except for rot. Thanks for the question. Okay, anything else, council? It's moved and seconded. Not, I'll call the question. All in favor? And carried. Thank you, Ms. Mayers. Okay, then we go to item 5.4 on page 79, and this is for a temporary use permit for 6583 Seashell Inlet Road. Council, any questions for Mr. Hall? Yeah.
Thank you. I was gonna wait and see if there was a presentation that might have preempted me, but I believe that this property has its own water source on site. Is that correct? And do they intend to utilize it for, dust control, irrigation, toilets and showers, the things they're gonna need to do on that property?
Yes, as far as we're aware, they do have their own water source on site. Originally, they were proposing full-on washrooms that would have been plumbed. And now they're proposing potentially portable toilets, but I think if they do have plumbing on site, they'll be utilizing their own water source. Whether or not it may be that the washrooms will be portable and pumped out rather than connected to the septic field, so that's still open. The TUP will kind of consider both options. But
Yeah, because any water source that I'm aware of is quite a ways away. So. Hmm? Wells, yes, on the uphill side. Hmm, yeah. Okay, yes, Councillor Bell.
Through the chair, I'm not really clear what this campsite is. Is it a private campsite that they're going to be renting out? I'm not clear on what the purpose of this campsite is.
Please, Mr. Hall.
Previously, it has been used as a private campsite for nation members only. And now they're looking to turn it into a commercial campground open to the public to generate revenue. So before it was kind of used privately for the nation, and now they want to run a commercial operation there, hence why they're required to get a TUP from us, because the zoning doesn't allow that. So the temporary use permit is the right way to go through to authorize a campground.
Other questions? I mean, I pick up on your comment, Councillor Toth, about the water. I mean, if we're speculating at the moment that maybe they have water on site, maybe they don't. In terms of a temporary use permit, is that something we want to make a condition of a TUP, Mr. Hall, or?
Yeah, certainly, when we can reinforce, I think we have conditions in there around servicing, but we can definitely make sure that it's clear about ensuring that, certainly like Vancouver Coastal Health has all the necessary approvals in place.
But that would be more for the septic side.
Yep.
Yeah, but for if they're taking water for dust control or, yeah, please.
Actually, as a commercial operation, if they're gonna be using well water, they're gonna have to be licensed as a campground for that well water usage, speaking from experience. And that is gonna be an interface through the health authority as well. There is provincial regulations on it as well, but it's the health authority that has to sign off on the plan for the drinking water or the well water use as well.
Councillor McLaughlin, were you ready? Okay. Oh, Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, I'm even waiting for something to happen on that property. I just didn't think it would be a campsite, just because it's all waterfront, so. I mean, the TUP has its limits in terms of time, and I guess the proposed location of the trailers will be near the waterfront, and hopefully there's, it's interesting to see the presentation, and any buffering that needs to be done. I just, it's waterfront land. I thought it would end up being some form of housing, so.
The operative word is temporary. You're right, it could be 2-3 years. It's a lot more than this summer, potentially.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, so
thought there
those are my
was there
thoughts.
not? There was a map showing where the,
84.
yeah, thank you. Oh, skipped through it. So page 84 shows where it's only 20 units. So-
Yeah.
Or 20 spots, so.
Yeah, I
anyways.
looked at that. It's close to the water, and then there's the upper part. I mean, obviously, we would like to see, in some cases, a higher and better use. Because, I mean, the district was just talking about money a little while ago. So, we'll see what happens going forward. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair. I'm in support of this. It is temporary and 40 campsites, I think, would help, especially in the summer. We have not very many and a lot of them are taken almost by permanent residents. So I think it's a good temporary use, and if they want to do it, great.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion to pass recommendation on page 79. The council approved temporary use permit 2424-02 for 6583 Seashell Inlet Road for a 3-year period, subject to the conditions of issuance described in the permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second? Okay. And Councillor Toth, you're Are you wanting to comment on water or?
Thank you. I don't think I think the impact from, 10 tenting sites and 10 RV sites will be fairly limited. It was more a curiosity question, and I guess we'll see. If we find that there are any substantial problems, I believe we have the authority to revisit the TUP. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's a bit late to get it going for this summer, I fear. Okay, anything? You're okay? Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Or are you, no, you're not back. Mr. Pearson. Hi there, Mr. Pearson. Okay, folks, this is on page 85 onwards and is in respect to the OCP Amendment Bylaw 492-35. I'm guessing you have something more than a brief presentation.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll try to make it brief. So, Council, you're all aware of this bylaw by now. It's been in front of you several times since the fall last year. First reading was granted in November. Then after that, we went right out to the required consultation under the Act. We received a fair amount of comments during that process. Second reading of the bylaw was granted in February. Public hearing was held in March. And at that public hearing, there was considerable opposition, I guess, to the bylaw. Mainly the provisions related to the low density residential designation and the residential designation. Those two areas which cover West Seashelt, for example, West Porpoise Bay. I do have a map here if you want me to sort of explain what I'm talking about. Okay, share my screen. I'm having trouble sharing my screen here. I'll explain it. Basically, if you look on page 2 of the staff report, there's a table with five land use designations listed on the left-hand side. The low density residential designation, staff is proposing to dial back that floor area ratio from the 0.5 that we originally proposed to 0.4. For the residential area, the same thing. And also to decrease the height, the policy for maximum height from 3 stories back to 2 stories for the residential area. Because what the opposition really boiled down to was height. I don't think there was much concern about increasing the floor area ratio from 0.35 to 0.5 or 0.4 to 0.5. But the idea of potentially having 3-story residential buildings in certain areas was a cause for concern. So staff are recommending that we basically don't touch those 2 designations. And thank you, sharing. And for the 3 designation special infill areas, neighborhood center, multifamily, mixed residential, downtown center and village, to keep those on the increase as shown in the table. And actually those are the areas in the district where we're getting the most development activity and interest and proposals. The 6 proposals that have been spoken about since last October amount to just over 400 new units And each one of those applications had to go through an OCP amendment process, which is a lengthy process that probably is not necessary. With this amendment, those type of proposals will not have to go through an OCP amendment like this, including the next item on the agenda. That's one of the 6 actually. So if council's comfortable with what staff is proposing here, there's a recommendation to rescind second reading of the original bylaw and then to grant second reading of the amended bylaw. And after that, if that happens, we will set a public hearing for July.
Okay, thank you. So questions on maybe we can start by focusing on page 86 and as on the screen and talk about those. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you to the chair. So I'm wondering with this new table, for instance, the village residential area in the OCP is considered infill. Where does it fall in here? Is it considered low density? Or is it considered special infill residential? Because
Okay,
Yeah.
you're asking in the
Yes.
village.
it's in the village, and it's on the table on page 86 or page 2 of your report. Because there it says again, 4 stories, and again, 4 stories in a residential neighborhood. I don't know what you're thinking is there. If you could just
Okay.
tell me what it is,
Yeah.
thanks.
So that's not changed from the last time.
Right.
Okay.
Most of your worship, the downtown core area has a multitude of OCP designations, approximately 6. And all of those are wrapped up into that last row at the bottom.
The 2.4
So a
and 6.
proposed FAR of 2.4, which is what the TELUS development is at. And looking for the future, we don't have much land. We're going to be looking at redevelopment of properties. We're going to be having to accommodate thousands of new units over the next 20 years. And this is where we're hoping the higher density will go.
Right, okay.
That doesn't really answer my
hang-
question.
Hang a sec, but the question was, the village is included, I think the answer to your question
Residential village.
is in the bottom row.
Yeah, I mean, in the OCP, the residential part, I'm not talking where TELUS is. I'm talking like near here, Medusa, Dolphin, where all the homes are, the single family homes. I'm talking about that, not TELUS.
Right.
I know what that
Yeah,
is.
and
And that's not part of the core, the village core, this distinction of the village neighborhood versus the village core. It's clear in the OCP and it's no longer clear in the stable. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to focus on, in particular on the first 3 because of the changes. And maybe Councillor Inkster, you can take it away.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't mind talking about that. The other ones of where we originally saw some density is something that we've been talking about for the last number of years. The slope, I call it the Seashell slopes. In West Seashell, it's funny, it's West Seashell starts there, but it would be good if it started actually after the slopes, because we could have a more clear discussion on height if we called it the Seashell slopes. So I guess what happened here was the height concerns that were, and Councillor Shepherd may know from, he maybe as part of those SCAF discussions, was maybe it was view blocking that people were concerned about. That would just be logical for me, although there's some areas within there that you could probably do some height things just past the high school near Trellis. It's maybe something you could do height. And we approved a development a little while ago on McCourt, where based on the topography, you could probably do height. So, I know what people were concerned about because they envisioned houses right in front of them. There's some concern on Jasper as well with that happening. I know some council members are aware of the concern over blocking views. I just foresee some areas in West Sechelt being perfect for slightly taller. What I see is if we can allow density in areas where it fits, maybe we'll be able to provide more affordable housing within that particular proposal. Smaller units and just better use of the land, so the costs of providing those units may go down. So always hopeful. We've seen a number of proposals come in front of us with larger houses, so they're more expensive, but we've also seen a number of them with stacked housing, which makes it more affordable. So I'm interested when we go forward, but I have some concerns of the change because I think it was about views and not necessarily about the best use of the land available in some areas on slope. So that's just my thoughts initially. Thanks.
Okay, and I'll go to Councillor Shepherd, but please let's focus on what's here so that we can be sure we understand staff's recommendation. Please.
Yeah, through the chair, just to echo Councillor Inkster's comments, I think, the revised table reflects the comments coming from the public about the initial run through of this policy. So I applaud planning for reacting to it and trying to modify the tables. I'm generally in support of this. I'm going to vote in favor of it, or that'll be, as I say, I'm in support of it. I think we're still going to have public feedback come back negative because it's just such a challenging thing to look at a broad zone where you can build up to 6 floors. Because some areas it's going to be appropriate and others it's not. But I think we're heading in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Can I'll ask a question where you're proposing, instead of typical maximum building height of 2 stories, you're proposing that would read 1 to 2 stories? How are we going to administer that?
Your worship, that's a great question. And that's actually how it's written in the current OCP. Words used like typical and encourage and should are what describe policies. So that this is not zoning we're talking about. These aren't zoning regulations saying that all buildings can be 2 stories. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, no, I think the challenge I have is, as a neighbor, I might say 1 story, but the owner of the property says I want 2. And it comes back to staff and ultimately to us to adjudicate potentially.
That's correct, your worship. And related to that, the zoning changes that just went through for the small scale multi-unit housing that were all done in one council meeting. None of those zones are proposing 2 stories.
You're going to have to remind me.
8 meters maximum height. Okay, not 3.
2, right.
Yeah. So anyways, sorry, I got that mixed up, but the zoning bylaw changes are not proposing anything more, or what was adopted are not having anything greater in height than what has always been the case here.
Understood. It's
Yeah.
more just I suppose administrative or subjective. If we can be more definitive, it would help the process, I would think. But anyways, I think you've answered that question. And I just realized when you said that, the 3rd column, the 3rd row down, the crossout is 3 for the single family detached on typical lots under 750. Am I right? My eyesight's failing me.
That's right, your worship, and that was the biggest concern.
Okay. So I just make sure I didn't pick that up until just now. So Councilor McLaughlin. No, you're. Well, that's very kind.
Why, thank you. I just wanted to just provide clarity. There's a little bit of confusion. We the bylaw sets to refocus our attention on the downtown core where we see much of the development. The concerns through the review and public comment period were about primarily the slopes within West Seychelles, but really can I have that back to where it was, please? Really just the same scale it was so they can see. Can you zoom it back out to catch the village, please? Thank you. Really, the focus here is the red, which is the commercial mixed area, and the orange, the multifamily units. It does include the purple area that Councillor McLaughlin was referring to, but we just changed the zoning there to the SHMU zoning. So it is difficult to build on those on a single development of a larger scale on a single lot. But this is an OCP policy that frames the background. But really, the focus of the amended bylaw here is to move away from the neighborhoods and the concern and focus on the ebb tides, the TELUS, the community services, et cetera, those types of buildings so that we can do that under a single unified OCP policy. And we've made amendments here to refocus that. And that's the intent of this amendment here within the bylaw. And when we get into wording like 1 to 2 stories and typical, those are all things we will look at in more clarity in the upcoming OCP review.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you.
Councillor Inkster, and then
Well,
Councillor
I
McLaughlin.
did have a question.
Oh, you did, you're right.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, that's the purple area is what I'm concerned about. And I was thinking with the OCP and the old zoning bylaw, this table was kind of in both. And I really think this table, I mean, the principles generally, as you say, the reasons why, and with some of the things you might say, it sounds like you're suggesting perhaps lots can be consolidated in the purple area over time and larger buildings could be built. But, or are you saying I should build a 4-story second dwelling with a roof on it in my backyard? Like, you know, if I take them literally, that's what I could have happen. And that's just, to me, is like a Frankenstein building. It just doesn't fit there. It could be possible, but it's not a good idea. And so that's what I was wondering about the intent. But still, I'm not convinced that this table is required in the OCP, perhaps in more in the zoning, where you get specific in terms of FAR. FAR really, you know, why are we doing FAR? I think the SHMU zoning we just introduced pretty much captured what we needed to do, and I supported that because I know it has to be done. But this is just a whole other level. And I'm wondering if we should do more general exploration through the development of a you know, an OCP before we just focus on this as a small piece. Aren't you going to do a broader OCP review, or is this it? Thanks.
Your worship, if I may, yes, absolutely. We will be doing a broader OCP review, but it's likely that will take 2 to 3 years. And this is something we're trying to accomplish to modernize our policy suite in the meantime. We've noticed that our policies across the board have fallen behind, and we're really trying to catch up. And that was really evident through the SHMU zoning. Thankful we had zoning bylaw 580 ready and it was more portable. We look at things like our development cost charge bylaw, and one of our other policies aren't keeping up with this. And this was something that we've been picking away at an OCP amendment, each one at a time for the past 5 years, realizing that reframing this table allows us to not have to, as Mr. Pearson says, amend the OCP each and every time, but modernize our framework, moving away from units per hectare, which is not a useful metric in a downtown urban environment, and moving into a consolidated central policy for floor area ratio is our goal. It just so happened that we started this before the province introduced SHMU, and unwittingly they have merged and intertwined to some degree. But ultimately the zoning is what happens right now, today and tomorrow. The OCP might frame our discussion when we're meeting with property owners or developers or applicants to look at what possibilities are. And that's what this is more about the future looking possibilities rather than the nuts and bolts zoning.
Other questions? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. With your indulgence, Chair, I'd like to go a little bit into the weeds. When looking at page, I think 140 is the first reference that I saw to it in the bylaw itself. Gross floor area is the term that's being utilized here. And I was just wondering if staff could share a little bit more about what might be removed from floor area calculations. Doing a little bit of research in other communities, it looks like gross floor area is the standard, but there are also places that are looking at livable floor area. And the purpose behind that allows developers to provide more amenity space, larger building corridors, and just generally friendlier and more accessible space, because they're not included as part of the gross floor area calculation that limits the size of the building. I just wondered if staff had any thoughts or comments on that. Thanks.
Your worship, I can answer that.
Please.
So the idea of gross floor area in the OCP is not to get too specific either. And when you look at our zoning bylaw 580, the definition for gross floor area, it gets into the weeds, and it excludes uninhabitable space in some cases, deck space that isn't covered or under a certain height. But with the OCP, as Director Allen said, it is a starting point for staff to have discussions with developers on what might be possible through a zoning application, and for the citizens and the neighborhoods to have a general idea of what could be coming in the future.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm interested, if we proceed as recommended, we'll be back here in September, realistically, with a report on the public hearing in July. Right, Councillor Inkster.
I'm glad that the map went up there and there. Just to the right-hand side is what I keep talking about density, and what we could deal with not interfering with the yellow to the far left that may have concerns over view blockages. So there's some areas in there that I was referencing that it'll be interesting to see how staff deals with it and looks at the land in West Sechelt. I'm glad they're looking at the downtown in West Sechelt, because that seems to be a pressure area right now in Sechelt. So I'm glad they're looking at that closely. The other piece with height, though, I always wonder about, because people are always concerned about darkness and shade, and because trees are doing that now, so in those areas. So if they do develop it, as long as you're shorter than what the trees were, it's not necessarily that issue again, because that's a big Vancouver concern, as to why they did the planning in downtown Vancouver and around it, is shading and darkness. So it's just something that it'd be good to have a good, thorough discussion on. Thanks.
Which I guess you could present at the public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I know you're just joking, but I have a lot to say on this, on the density issue, because I think it's just if we're trying to keep our costs down, density is probably where we need to go if there's a demand on people wanting to move to our community, and to people wanting to live here. And because we can't really, if we shut down the ferries, people would just swim over. It's just that desirable of an area. So we just have to see how we can do it wisely. Thanks.
Thank you. There were whales out there this morning before you start volunteering to swim. Councillor Bell?
General comment. I mean, we've been at this whole process has been a result of, certainly some of the changes and pressures coming from the province. So, there has been some great work done. I feel at this point, we've done some really solid community engagement. We're not done yet, but well done from both the District of Sechelt, the planning staff, and thank you to the feedback from the community. I think that at this point, I've seen some positive changes. We're not done yet, as I say, and if I would like to make a recommendation to move this motion forward.
And the motion is which one?
Let's go back
On
here.
page
right there.
85?
Yeah. Public hearing.
Well,
Yep.
there's three.
There's three recommendations. Just let me look here again. Page, please.
I think we need page 85.
85.
We need to do them individually, I
Okay.
believe, so. Can we do them all? Rescind and, okay, well, we'll do them. If it's the will of council, we can do them all at one time. Counselor Bell? So is that your motion
It's my motion.
as
Yes.
presented on page 85?
Yes, as
items
presented
1,
on
2, and 3.
85.
Okay,
Mhm.
and seconded. Okay, any further discussion? Counselor McLaughlin?
I'm not in support of these recommendations. I think West Sea Shelf is an area where there's sewers, and so I think there could be more density there. We need complete communities, and one thing I've always thought was important is building perhaps higher density around schools so that parents with kids can actually live right beside or very near their schools. So this kind of doesn't really allow that. I mean, I guess in that case, you'd have to make it an infill area around some of the schools. And so that's forward thinking, I think. In terms of affordability, what I heard when I went to the SHMU meetings at various conferences is that it's important to not let this kind of development increase allow for just larger homes. It's important that they said to legislate the number of units you want in a home, like get units out of it, not just space, not just FAR. And I don't really see that reflected in here. And I think that is the way to go if we actually want, we have lots of single family large homes. I can show you some up on the hill you're talking about, which are, must be 5,000-6,000 square feet under construction. It's not helping in terms of housing and affordability. We just 40% on our capital project try and upgrade this building. So that's anything we do, it's going to be very hard to make it affordable. So I think those are steps we could take a really good look at this before we rush into changing the OCP again. I mean, like I say before, we've kind of rushed into these things before we've had even the opportunity to realize the province has ideas about it and, you know, ways we could refine it before we just rush ahead. To me, in the village area, there's a lot of people that are renters there. They're not going to come to your meetings and tell you anything because they're scared of being evicted or having their landowner know that they said anything at all about where they live. And I think it's unfair to just say, some people in some communities said we don't want extra floors, and then to say to the whole village that it's fine, you can build 4 stories in your backyard with a roof. That just doesn't make sense to me at all. And it's not fair to the population. And it's a large growing population here that rents their home where they live and is reliant upon landlords to use those houses that they own as second properties or third or whatever. And maybe it's really helping developers is who it's helping to buy up our homes, even keep them empty for redevelopment, for too much density and not necessarily any real additional housing. Thank you.
Okay. I guess my concern with that is if we don't increase the supply, then the rents for people in the village will go up. So I feel we have to come up with some solutions. I think this goes partway, but it's certainly not the solution. Any other questions, comments, council?
If I could comment on that. We need small units and we do not need large developments with large homes adding the need for more water. We haven't solved the water issue at all.
Fine.
And again, adding just density for the sake of developers, so they have a water guarantee with their upzoning, which is already supposedly going to be in the OCP here. They don't even have to come for an OCP review. They can just blast ahead. And under the circumstances, we're in unique circumstances here. I don't have any confidence really that we have assured water supply moving forward for these huge amounts of development that are going ahead. And this OCP is just another amendment, another big water grab, really. And I don't think it's helping to build the community that I think we should give to the residents that live here. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, council? Call the question. This is the items 1, 2, and 3 on page 85. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin is opposed. The motion carries that's all I need to do for that one. Oh, we do need to read, we need to read do the second reading.
No, the rescinding is complete with
Yes.
the one resolution. However, bylaw 492-35, 2023, as amended, will need to be read for the second time
Right.
as on page 141.
Yep. Thank you. That's a motion. Thank you, Councillor Toth. Seconded. Okay, any discussion? So, yes. Yep, no, there's lots of scope in this yet, I think. Okay, so, this will read on page 141 that it's been rescinded today and read a second time today. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin is opposed. The motion carries. All right, thank you, Mr. Pearson. Oops, look at that. Something I said. With that, we go to item 6.2, and this starts on page 143 and relates to 5875 Reef Road. Who's back? So, council, want to hear from Mr. Hall? Yes, we do.
Thank you, Council. So yeah, we have this application ready for adoption. I will say all the rezoning conditions have been met. One of the conditions around water conservation is included in the recommendations. The only thing to point out there, the applicant has raised a concern about recommendation 3D, which would is a outdoor water use for landscaping would be restricted to non-potable water sources such as rainwater or gray water reuse. In their minds, that would be too restrictive on future residents in the development. So I would put that back to council that if council wanted to consider removing that particular recommendation, but still keep 3A, B, C, and E, that could be an option. Or council could endorse all of them. What we have tried to do across a number of the more recent rezonings is come up with a mix of water conservation measures and really focusing a lot on the outdoor irrigation and reducing use of potable water for outdoor irrigation needs. So that's something where we've tried to, with council support, push a lot of strong measures in some mix of one or more of these items. But I would put it back to council to consider the applicant's request to remove the 3D recommendation.
Okay, I'll take that as presented. Thank you, Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, it looks like it's completely restricted. The only, one of the ways you could look at this is at stages where water can be utilized is at the stages. Because we all know when water's going up over the dam, that there's a lot of water. So maybe that's one way. We would have, maybe that's one way we have wiggle room.
Don't we have that now? When we go to stage 3 and so on, we can't water outdoors anyways.
Well, we're restricting it completely. Are we not?
Understood, but
Yeah.
you know, if they don't want to have water, if they don't have a non-potable water source,
Mhm.
then they won't be able to water in stage 3 and 4.
Yeah, well,
Might-
yeah, I think,
it might-
yeah, I think that you could do, I don't know how, it's a discussion because you use your non-potables once you hit those stages, you save it, right?
If you have it.
If you have it.
Mhm.
And they've said they're gonna be doing some of that, so, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that part of it? They don't have a,
I mean, they're looking at like for 3B, I mean, rain gardens, more for managing drainage on the site, less so rainwater capture in terms of tanks or cisterns. I don't think that's been a focused part of their application. So that's where I think from their perspective, the 3D is sort of, well, they weren't looking at capturing a lot of rainwater for irrigation needs. It was more a managing drainage on site because of the surrounding water courses.
thanks. Councillor Tough, please.
Thank you. Actually support all of the conditions that are here and then a little more. I had written to talk about possibly adding a condition F, which would be that no water faucets on the exteriors of buildings be connected to potable water systems. Townhomes use less water than a single family dwelling. Everybody knows that. But I think it's a good opportunity for the developer to prove that things can be done better, things can be done differently. You know, we've got another developer in West Sechelt that's looking at doing water storage and rainwater tanks for every unit in the development. So as we move forward, I think we're gonna be needing to do more of this, not less of it. And I think restricting potable water use outdoors is sensible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Yeah, I'll just pick up on that comment. If there's one thing I hear continually from residents is, where you, the district, have control over water issues, it's in conservation. So first of all, thank you very much to the planning department for enforcing this issue when they're in discussion with the developers. But these residents are always telling me, push the limit on conservation measures. So I'm in support of all of these measures. I would like to see or find out why cisterns aren't a part of each new development. But I think that's our job here, given the comments from Councillor McLaughlin on scarcity of water. With each new development, we have to push the envelope on conservation measures. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair. If I could comment on that further. For instance, at the existing Green Court building, all the outdoor faucets have been removed. And the residents weren't very happy about that because, they got used to watering things and having a nice summer and all that. So it's happening anyway, and there are no cisterns. Like, those plants have to make it or not. And if they don't, well, a little more hard landscaping will be in order, I think. Thank you.
Okay. Your microphone's on. Oh, okay, okay. So, I'm wondering about the applicability of doing that in terms of the winter when we have lots of water, or if indeed we've solved some of the water supply issues. Do we, I don't know, watering or washing our cars in the winter? If you don't have an outdoor pipe or outdoor faucet, is that where we want to go? As opposed to imposing the restrictions that we currently have that stop us from washing our cars.
Thank you. I think we need to stop looking at it as a summer-only problem. When we talk about getting treated, chlorinated, potable water distributed to houses 365 days of the year, I think we need to be looking at how we're using water every day, not just in the summertime when we've got some scarcity going on. Using, like, this water isn't free. It's not free to treat. It's not free to distribute. And yeah, from that perspective, I think if people are really interested, if we're talking about hand watering only, if people really want to, they'll fill up a watering can inside. But in terms of washing a car, personally, I don't use treated drinking water to wash my car. And I think the idea of doing that is horrendous. But I'll leave that up to other councillors to weigh in on. Thanks.
Anything? Not everybody has access to non-potable water. That's the part that I'm trying to figure out. If we could provide the two sources, that would be spectacular, but I fear that cost would be more than treating chlorinated water. Oh, no, I'm talking about doing it at home.
Yeah, I think with the numbers of approvals, we may have to start looking at, different ways to restrict and or encourage non-potable water use. So I think that's where the additional recommendation here is doing. It's interesting though. It's almost like we should get staff to bring us all the developments in the summer months. Because we're so worried about water then, right? I wonder if we'd be making these same decisions in December when came in with our raincoats on. It's just a thought. But I'm okay with, as the numbers of approvals go up, that we start to look at how we can creatively save more water for everyone. Thanks.
I agree with that. Finding ways to conserve is always great. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, I'm just following this line of conversation. I think that conservation is absolutely critical now. We know that we don't know what the future is going to look like, but we know that it's changing considerably. And it's not just here. And I think that we need to start looking at the developers and having them be part of the solution. And so I am all for the motion here to keep all A to E. And perhaps, I don't know if you had a motion there, did you, Councillor Toth, adding another one? But I am supporting A to E 3 and all recommendations.
Thank you. I don't think I didn't get a motion yet, right? No. So we could do 1 and then 2 and then 3, opposed all together?
Well, I'm just wondering from a process perspective, if I could move everything, including my additional F, and then we simply sever F to vote on it separately. Could we do
Just
that,
1
Chair?
and 2?
I mean, I'm looking at adding 3F, so
Mhm.
it's part of 3.
Just process wise, my sense is 1 and 2 are probably going to get support. 3, we've heard maybe staff is saying it's up to us to remove D or add F. So I can see some, process wise, I can see some discussion on that. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I think I was going to suggest that we do 1, 2, and 3, A to E, and then Councillor Toth introduce an additional motion to add F. But it's kind of ironic. Staff came to us with a concern the developer had, and we decided to double down. I don't know if
Mhm.
council noticed that. We actually
Mhm.
doubled down and added another provision, so be careful what you ask us for. So anyway, that's what I thought that we could do. That's another option, to do 1, 2, and 3 down to E, and then Councillor Toth could add the F for individual discussion to be added to it, and then it just cleans it up a little bit. Thanks.
Okay, I would like to ask that we do them individually. So if council, do you wish to make a motion in respect to 1? Or it's up to you, Councillor Shepherd.
I'm happy to move recommendation 1.
Okay, is there a seconder? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Opposed, thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Okay, motion for item 2 and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, Councillor McLaughlin. And now Councillor Toth. How would you like to deal with 3?
I think for the moment, I'm going to introduce recommendations 3A through E as presented.
Okay,
We'll go from there.
thank you. Seconded, okay. Okay, discussion? I'm actually going to vote against because I think D is unnecessary. I think that the restrictions that are imposed through our various watering restrictions fulfill that, and for the reasons I've said earlier. So that's where I stand. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to vote against it as well. For all the reasons I've said all along, voting against it, I just don't think it's a properly done, environmentally designed development. And, you know, we have one little request here for conserving some water and they don't like it. And to me, it doesn't go nearly far enough to become a sustainable development, especially with the rain garden, whatever they have in there. That's just not adequate by any
Okay.
stretch to me. Thank you. Or in terms of neighborhood planning, which I've been asking for. There is no neighborhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little confused because Recommendations 1 and 2 are regarding the zoning and OCP bylaws. Recommendation 3 is about enforcing water conservation measures. And what I heard Councillor McLaughlin say is that she's opposed to enforcing water conservation measures. I just wanted clarity. Thank you.
These don't go far enough in terms of anything that way. Thank you. That's why I'm opposed to this set of conservation measures.
Thank you. In that, I mean, I feel they didn't go far enough either, which is why I'm proposing to add an F as we go further. So I guess from that perspective, Councillor McLaughlin, if this is going forward, based on recommendations 1 and 2, what would you see differently in recommendation 3 that would see you endorsing water conservation measures?
I think, bear in mind, Councillor McLaughlin voted against 1 and 2. So in that sense, well,
Just to further that, I mean, I did offer early on to have a planning steering committee to discuss these things in detail, and you want everything at committee of the whole, so, or straight to council. So, you know, I have offered, could say a lot over time, but at this point, I think, you know, you guys have come this far with this. There's not much I can do about that. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's almost redundant. I'm going to support, I have supported 1 and 2. I'm going to support all the way to E because it actually does do something that a number of people are concerned about, which is tighten up our water usage. And then I look forward to F, which further tightens up our water usage. Thanks. I look forward to the
Okay.
vote to come forward.
Me- Seeing nothing else, I'll call the question. All in favor of 3 A, B, C, D, and E as presented on page 143? Opposed, Councillor McLaughlin and myself opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to also introduce 3F, which would be that no water faucets on the exteriors of buildings be connected to potable water systems.
Okay, any discussion? Well, to amplify or?
Sounds like my phone. No, I'm good with that because I
Okay.
think Councillor Toth was really clear about potable water sources, so
Right.
treated water. Thanks. I'll be
Okay.
supporting this.
Thank you.
Yes, through the chair. One thing came up at Green Court is that residents, and some of them are in wheelchairs and they don't have great mobility generally, being elderly and handicapped people living there, is that they saw a small fire or something, they wouldn't know, they couldn't get to a hose to put it out if they had to, if they tried. So that is kind of not great.
Okay. Councillor Shepherd.
Just a quick question through the chair to planning. Is there not one other development that has been approved by council where there was a restriction on exterior bibs or hose? I thought there was one other that's already come before us.
Yes, I believe there's been one other rezoning application that has I think basically an identical recommendation to 3D imposed. I think if I'm thinking of the correct one, they were also proposing or factoring in space for actual rainwater tanks or cisterns. I believe those two were connected.
Dora? The Dora? With sister?
No, I think that was the Lot 5 Tower Road development.
Okay.
I believe so.
All right, thank you. So they've
Right.
chosen. No, but they've, in that case, I guess they've got the big tanks they're anticipating where I don't, whether it's, please save me.
Yeah, these are basically our standard recommendations that we've developed over the past year. And you're correct, the Vidora on Wharf Avenue, he proposes underground tanks. Tower Road and West Seashell proposes what Mr. Hall just described. McCourt Road proposes a number of gray water reuse, water storage, et cetera. So in many cases, we're seeing the applicants really, no pun intended, dig in and get excited about this and come up with ideas. Not the case in every scenario, but A through E are our best practices at the moment. They will, of course, continue to evolve. And if F gets added to that, we'll certainly consider that for future applications. But it is developing amongst the various applications.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Yep. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilors McLaughlin and myself opposed. Motion carries. That brings us to, we got to go to page 162. Thank you, Mr. Hall. And do the actual bylaw for adoption. So this is bylaw number 492-36, 2023, as printed on pages 162 and the attachment. A motion to adopt and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. The motion carries. We then do, all right, the last time that happened was in Calgary and there was a water main burst. So we go to, where am I? Somebody help me, where? Yes.
Yeah, 164.
Thank you. So this as well is before us for adoption, 580-08, 2023 on page 164 and onwards. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin, the motion carries. I think I've done what we need. Thank you. We then go to our minutes. So this is item 7.1 on page 167. And the meeting of June 5th.
I just was seeking clarity here because on page 167, and I apologize for not bringing it up earlier. I was only reading the minutes while I was sitting in the ferried lineup for 3.5 hours today. On page 167, it says that the chair noted that the following council members send their regrets.
Yeah.
But then Councillor Bell was in attendance virtually. So I think,
Mhm.
in fact, Councillor Bell did not send her regrets.
No, I was there. You're not.
Yeah. See? Councillor Toth? See? Yeah. I had it highlighted too. All right, with that amendment, is there anything else? I was glad to see that Councillor Bell was there because then without you, there wouldn't have been a quorum.
Yeah.
Okay, any other errors, omissions, corrections? Not motion to adopt as amended, seconded, all in favor, carried. Go to the committee of the whole meeting of June 12th.
I'll introduce that for adoption.
Thank you. And I wanted to clarify the recommendation 4 on page 177, 178, I beg your pardon. Was the reference to the Sunshine Coast Community Services Society to be donated from the district of Sechelt? I mean, I think we should be saying the legacy fund, should we not? Did we not? I don't mean to correct. I don't. That was the whole discussion, but I don't know if the motion contemplated that, so. No. I don't know where else it would come from, but
Well, yeah, yeah.
please. Okay, it's just about the minutes, whether they're accurate, so. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. On page 177, it was just a clarification within item 4.1, which is that the amount of money that they're asking for is intended to cover the initial costs to get the class action certified. It was not to cover the entire cost, just a small thing.
So that people agree with? Is that what was said? Okay. Okay, so we need to change entire to initial. Okay. And as chair, you're comfortable that the other one didn't specify legacy fund? No, I'm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so be it. That's it. Okay, then.
My apologies, Your Worship. Could I just get clarification on the first item, changing entire to initial? Was that with regard to recommendation number 2?
Just above that, on the third bullet point, second bullet point, the amount of money they are asking for is intended to cover the initial cost.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the only, it's the only amendment for these minutes. Yeah. Okay, so with that amendment, a motion to adopt is amended, seconded, all in favor, carried. And we go to 7.3. June 12th, the meeting at council. Generic motion to adopt, I'm sure. Seconded, all in favor, but this is the minutes on page 179 and 80. Yep, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, from there we go to council reports. And we have the SCRD representatives reports. Counselor Inkster. Oh,
They almost made it the whole.
Quick, Darren, go. Nobody's listening.
Do it.
Get it over with.
And that's the end of my SCRD reports.
Thanks for coming.
yeah. Okay. For those who are hanging on their seats, please, Counselor Inkster. The CRD report.
Yeah, there was quite a substantial water update verbally provided last week and a number of questions on siphon system and the EFN. I'm trying to clarify a number of those issues for the public. And I think we're making some progress in those areas in order to bring in those kinds of water devices. So we'll see going forward, because it's all about permissions, as we all know. I'm just going to mention that, or there's other things to mention. Councillor Toth may mention, I just wanted to mention that we had a lot of discussion on on the strat plan going forward. So it's some heavy discussion on that. So it's all about trying to make sure that tasks, I would say call it tasks that are determined, are completed. So it's all, to me, it's all about capacity. So it's a big discussion about making sure that the organization is nimble enough to complete a number of projects and or future projects, and not piling them up on each other, because there's a lot going on, including some water stuff. So that's it for me on the regional district then.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Anything to add, Counselor Toth?
Thank you. Yeah, the only thing I really wanted to add was that there was also a contract award for the cemetery expansion, design and construction, $325,000, because people are dying to get into Seaview and it's running out of space. So in terms of the strat plan, we've got a couple of workshops that are scheduled here over the one hopefully before the end of this month, and another one in July, where we're going to be looking at sort of an update review of the strat plan, make sure everything's making sense. We're going to roll into a little bit of a governance workshop. Directors have expressed some frustration about being able to move new things forward and help with higher level discussion about policy and direction. They feel that there isn't really capacity within the current structure to do that. We're going to be having a little talk about how we can incorporate more of that. And then, of course, the prioritization based on the staff capacity that Councillor Inkster referenced, because it's it's frustrating not only to the public, but also to directors and staff when we budget to do these works and we're not getting things done in the year. Like, everybody's frustrated. And so it's gonna take some work, but there is a little bit of change management that's gonna be coming. So that's my SCRD report.
You want to go first? Do you want to ask a question? Yeah. Hmm? Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question of our two SCRD representatives, both on water. The first one was on the public meeting that I listened to, in the last 2 weeks, on EFN, the discussion on the EFN. Do I understand this correctly, that we are so late in the season now that even if we did get an EFN approval from both the Shishal and the province, it would only buy us several days of water? Is that accurate? That was a surprise to me. And I'm not sure how public that is, or whether it's reverberated. The second sort of question I have of both the directors, and I apologize in advance, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. None of the studies for the Lower Crown are publicly available to anyone. And I find that very frustrating, because the technical analysis is ongoing here, hopefully drawing to an end. And the SCRD and the Shishal will be asking us for decision support for Lower Crown. And yet none of the underlying studies the public have been able to look at. So I'm just wondering how fair that is, what you both think of it. And, you know, that is going to be tax money supporting it. Why should those studies not be available? Thanks.
Great. Who, can either of you comment?
I can go first, I guess. Directors haven't seen them yet either, so don't feel too bad that you're frustrated that you haven't seen them yet. There is a difference in process between what the Sechelt Nation is able to do and what the SCRD as a local government under provincial law is able to do. We've had a meeting recently where we had some conversation, and it was really only just sort of surfaced. It was talked about a year ago, but it was only really surfaced that the SCRD is going to have to go to an alternative approval process or a referendum on the Lower Crown Reservoir. And it's not about the construction, because the nation is taking care of the construction costs through the mechanisms that it has applied for. But in terms of the lease agreement to operate it for a length of time. And that was something that somehow slipped through the cracks in terms of the common understanding. And so before we can even go to the public with that AAP or that referendum, we need to know what the operating costs are going to be of the Lower Crown Reservoir. And so that work is regularly ongoing within the technical team and has not come to us as a board yet, publicly or in camera. There was a water question that I missed, I'm sorry.
Leaders, EFN.
Yeah, so the EFN reduction benefits us if we're able to utilize it in June, July, and then a more limited amount in August and September before the fish start returning. Well, we're almost done June and we're still in stage 1. So that's already a significant amount of EFN potential that's off the table just because the water's still flowing over the dam. And so at this point, it's about what we can do in the short term, what we can look at for the long term. There is a budget, we did pass a budget proposal to look at a 3-year environmental study of the creek to support a more long-term reduction of EFN. So it's one of those things that even if it doesn't benefit us this year, there will still be science being done hopefully this year to support the future reductions. Thank you.
That's helpful. More explanation is always helpful, and I appreciate it. I would really like to press, I'll leave it at this, I won't introduce a motion, but I'd really like to press our SCRD representatives as they're going through each water update the sooner the public sees those underlying studies and gets a chance to analyze them, and it's about getting the public to buy into this process. And the more they're held back, I think it's hurting everyone involved. It's just my own thought. Thank you.
I'd offer to, if we could reduce the EFN by 40 liters a second, that's 3,400 liters, cubic meters a day. And in a summer day, we're using about 12,000, plus or minus. So, you know, in arithmetic, 4 days of reduction provides a full day of water later. 4 times 3,000 is about what we need. But the point is, we're always going to have water coming. So I think it actually extends much longer than just 6 or 7 days. Thank you, because you beat me to it on asking those questions. Okay.
I might have sent Councillor Shepherd to more meetings in my place.
You go.
He can ask for those.
There's an opportunity.
questions. Yeah.
Well, and Councillor Shepherd did say he wasn't going to make it a motion, but just an encouragement on behalf of, well, technically yourself, but I support that as well as please know you're going there with our support. Speaking for at least you and me to ask those questions. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, I try and watch the SCRD YouTube stuff to keep up to speed with it, but I noticed they do have a table they use to track all their capital projects, which I think would be helpful. I know it looks like it was a lot of work. There's a lot of things on that, but I think also coming from a project management background, I mean, that's just bread and butter for me. I need to know that, and I would like to see that for our projects. We have $13 million worth of last year's capital projects that need to get done, and then how many more? 24 million more? Talking about $1 million, joking us up today, and that's like, look at the capital plan. There's a lot. So there's a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to track, and hopefully, you know, we get that. We'll be working on that. We won't need reserve money to throw to a lot of new projects. Hopefully next year, I think we'll still be busy with everything on the books. And then also, looking at the RD, I noticed they have their climate action plan. And I don't really know how that affects Seashell. So maybe next time or whatever, you could comment on that for us. Obviously, we're part of it, but we need it. One thing they were talking about is natural assets, and I need to study those and use those. And also as the Chapman watershed being a natural asset. I mean, we're lucky. We complain about how much it's going to cost to operate a new reservoir or something, whether it's partly built in First Nations land, you know, mining areas or not. We've had it pretty cheap with just a lake that flows downhill water. So the reality is most places have to build reservoirs and maintain them and pump them and all the rest of it. So I think that's just to be expected. Oh, thank you.
Here's the plan.
A few weeks ago, I didn't get to comment on it. I did attend a meeting at the Davis Bay Community Hall of the membership. They were hoping to have the SRD, somebody speak on water there, but that person was not able to make it. But so we did have a meeting anyway, and just the highlights of that is that they're very concerned about water, which we know, and every time I go to their meetings, I hear that. And then also, they're concerned that they're not seeing much help from us and in terms of transportation and traffic. And it's true, they're having a hard time getting out of their neighborhood. Trying to turn left or right onto the highway is getting harder all the time. So, you know, it's the frustration is building. So hopefully we can help with that and address that, because, you know, nobody likes being stuck in their neighborhood when they have to get somewhere.
Councillor McLaughlin, do you want to continue and be the first of the council reports?
That's what I'm doing.
Good.
And I mean, those are the main things. I just wanted to highlight their, you know, concerns regarding traffic especially, and also local area planning for them. They want to understand what the future is for their community and have plans to, you know, develop those by having actual plans of streets and lots and parks and, having groups of people. It's a tool for design and it's a tool for planning. So hopefully they'll get that and be able to help us with the OCP, what their dreams are for that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Bell then. Give Councillor Inkster's vocal cords a brief rest.
Do I
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
tab this? Yes, I do. Okay. Just a couple things. On May 28th, and I'll read this a little bit just because I want to give a bit of background. I attended an event hosted by VCH and TRAC, which is Transportation Choices Sunshine Coast. The event was supported through a partnership with the Sunshine Coast Resource Centers Be the Change initiative. Since the dissolution of the SCRD's Transportation Advisory Committee, there's been no forum for organizations, governments, and institutions on the Sunshine Coast to foster ongoing dialogue on the coast-wide priorities, challenges, and opportunities that shape our current transportation context. As a result, planning and actions that are aimed at improving this system are often taking place in parallel and disconnected from each other. With this in mind, this raised the question for many for the need for reimagining opportunities for system-wide coordination, communication, and collaboration between key transportation actors and organizations on the coast. Hence, the Sunshine Coast Transportation Collaboration convening 2024 was shaped, and May 28th was an event to have 25 people in a cross-sector conversation to discuss the future of transportation collaboration on the Sunshine Coast. The event included group work around a number of questions. Information was recorded, and at the end, a final question was asked if there was interest to continue this as a working group, and the appetite was high for this. There'll be more information forthcoming on the next steps in the near future. The other thing was just amazing second year Seashell Jazz Festival. It was just fantastic. Shout out to Lucy. And what's really interesting about this event is that it's almost like attracted. We start with a smaller group, and then all of a sudden people start to hear it. And then all of a sudden it just people coming in from all areas and walking and so on. So what I would like to do is I have a goal. I want to beat Gibson's Jazz Festival. We want to make it that big and bigger, because it is a great event that having it in Hackett Park, there's so much opportunity. And of course, the stage is fantastic. And to see all ages there, all ages, young and old, and the little kids up dancing, it was fantastic. So I really would love to see this this event grow and become a signature event for the District of Seashell. So let's make that happen. We're going to beat Gibson's Jazz Festival. It was fun. And along with my fish story.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd?
Just three things. I attended a SCAF meeting, sort of a very small SCAF meeting. Thanks very much to Councillor Rowe and Councillor Toth, because the SCAF needed some, we're trying to produce some neighborhood plans for their emergency planning progress or plan that they're putting into effect. And Councillor Toth was kind enough to use a special printer that one of his businesses has to produce the maps that they needed. So very helpful for them. And they've got an event coming up, I think Saturday, is it July 6th or 10th? The 6th. Yeah, a Saturday event to talk about neighborhood organization in cases of emergency. We had an airport development committee, very productive. Again, thanks very much to staff for attending. They've really turned around the tone of that committee. It's very positive. The members are putting together a sort of block plan of where they want to see functions as a part of a master plan, and it's really moving ahead. It was very encouraging. So we're getting there with the master plan, hopefully coming back to council and by the fall. And then today was a Chamber of Commerce meeting. It was one of the first, the Consolidated Chamber meetings that I've attended, and they opened with very complimentary to the planning department about the OCP startup process. They were really impressed with it. So a lot of positive comment there. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Ping pong today. Counselor Inkster? Yes.
Council wants more information. Just go touch on the water issue. It's good that we talk about it a lot. It's a big issue. As Councillor Toth drinks water. When, just so council knows, and I think council probably knows this from how we prioritize here, as soon as the project came up, because everyone talks about reservoirs, some staff had to do a left turn to go to that project from your regional district. As we all know from how staff has to react to new projects, is that they had a fairly full table, but they had to go left to go to work with that one. So it's a lot of extra staff time. So I just wanted to let this council know that, because we want to work with everybody and we want to find those solutions, but it's a strain on an organization, big strain. So we'll probably, Councillor Toth and I will probably update council on those kinds of things, because we're talking about capacity. So I just want to mention a couple things. The BC Ferries had a meeting the other Monday night, and it was in West Sechelt. And I have the document that they produced there, that they asked questions. It's a difficult one, because we're trying to, so now council knows that, as I mentioned, that we're trying to go back to open public meetings because we're shut down for a year. So we were trying to, once we started the meetings up, which is the other night, they presented a document and asked a number of questions to people that people have been complaining about for years. So it was a little bit confusing. It went through short-term and long-term issues, and the information's here if anyone wants to look at it. If they don't know what I mean, is that a number of the questions they were asking is questions that people have been giving answers to for 15 years. So it was like, are they listening? So we're having to respectfully talk about what they asked us, but then there's another meeting next week, which it sounds like I can't go to. Are you aware of that meeting too? Yeah, we can't go to it. I can't go to it. Doesn't sound like timing. There's a time crunch on that day, I think. So I had a conversation with Jennifer. Yeah, so that's, you might want to look at your schedule, because if you were planning on going, I think we're going to have a time crunch that day. But that's an important additional meeting with BC Ferries on there. Just so council knows, I think the mayor remembers the exact wording, the new contract. What's the performance contract? Started April 1. So it's beginning again because it's got a performance contract. I think that's what the meeting next week's about, is about that. But I don't know if we can go. But here's the document. It's just they're asking a lot of the same questions, but we've dealt with the TAP forms have been extended to include reservations, but I think everyone knows that you got to call. So, and I've called them a couple times lately, and I've been able to get through myself. So it's certainly, I found, easier than calling TELUS. I got to tell you. So that's good, because it's so that people can get reservations with their TAP forms. But we keep reminding them of another boat. It's just continuous. It's in here, right? And the other thing that came up the other night that I want to remind everyone of, they were supposed to put a redevelop Horseshoe Bay, which would help move traffic quicker. I don't know where that went. And the overhead pedestrian walkway at Langdale, which would mean that people didn't have cars in, they didn't have to wait till people came on and off for cars to load, which is slowing things down. So I'm sure the mayor's aware of that one, but that's a big issue that we should be all talking about, because they need to put that pedestrian walkway in Langdale so that we get people on and off the boat. The other one I wanted to mention is, obviously, I don't know if Councillor Toth took all the information he was able to, record and take pictures of to make a presentation. I'm not sure. But we did go to that wildfire conference, as council knows, a couple of weeks ago. And I will mention there wasn't many people from the coast there, but there was a lot from the interior, and obviously because of the closeness of the departments. But what we're finding is that what I found, and Councillor Toth had some other takes, which is good because that means you guys are getting comprehensive information, is that what I found was the temperatures are staying at high levels now, and they're every summer it's hotter in the province. And that then means that fires start easier because everything's so hot, especially the interior, and it doesn't cool down at night. So fires used to abate and or slow down at night. Now they don't. So the people working on the fires don't have the rest. The equipment doesn't get the rest, and they can't sort of adjust a strategy based on the fire slowing down because the ground is so hot up there all the time. Another thing I was going to mention, a couple things I was going to mention, is one of the problems with that because they're always looking for why are we getting so many fires now, other than the fact that the climate is heating up all the time, is there's a couple of sort of economic challenges. One is that we monoculture that I've been talking about. We've been planting the same trees. We don't plant a lot of deciduous. We're always planting evergreens, which are really flammable during the summer. And it's for obvious reasons. It's because we cut them down and we harvest them for lumber and paper products. So that's caused one of the problems. And the other thing that's not that popular, and I don't think it will be on the coast because of viewscapes and the beauty of our surroundings, is thinning trees and creating either a non-treed corridor, a thin treed corridor, a deciduous treed corridor, so that if there is a fire, it stops. You hope it stops there. So we're not as hot here, but eventually something's going to happen here, and I hope we can prepare for it. And that's my information on that conference this week. I'll mention a little bit next time. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I've got notes, I've got handouts, took pictures, I recorded a couple of the sessions. So between Councillor Inkster and I, maybe we'll have a slideshow for next time. I'll touch on it though at the end of my report. So it's been a while, I attended the House of Clans pole ceremony and the tour of the building. Attended the Longhouse for the ceremony honoring the survivors of residential schools and their families. I've been attending events at the Longhouse pretty much since it was built, and I'm always honored to be invited to attend those ceremonies. And one thing that I do appreciate about the ceremonies that they run is that even the serious ones attempt to bring a little bit of humor into the way they present and they talk, and they're not afraid to admit mistakes during presentations. Quash is an amazing host for all of these ceremonies and events. Of course, there's one more coming up on June 23rd, which is the pole unveiling at the House of Clans. Oh,
No, I'll
yeah,
talk about
okay,
that in a
it's
minute.
been rescheduled.
Yeah.
Schedules are out for CIA Days. July 1st, parade planning is well underway. Registrations are coming in from all over the community. We've got the Community Association's emergency preparedness. Councillor Shepherd touched on that. But they do feel that it's a subject that they can really sink their teeth into. And so the question going forward is how we as governments can give them the tools to help them help themselves, instead of always having to be the ones that they're relying on and getting frustrated with. And so I'm really enthusiastic by what West Sechelt Community Association is doing. Hopefully that spreads to the rest of them and the rest of the coast. The end of the school year is very rapidly approaching, and I just wanted to say congratulations to all of our grads and best wishes on their future endeavors, because we know they all watch YouTube and they all watch our stream. So, they're all watching now. In terms of the wildfire conference, there's a couple notes I wanted to add on. That was the launch of the UBC Okanagan and UBC Vancouver bi-campus Center for Wildfire Coexistence. And so they're going to be doing a lot more proactive management techniques, reintegrating indigenous knowledge into wildfire practices. One of the speakers pointed out, 10 years ago, you weren't even able to get a degree as a fire ecologist. But that's something that you can do now because of the changing environment. There's about 200 people there. And fire is breaking a lot of the known rules, like Councillor Inkster mentioned, not calming down at night anymore, things like that. And 150 years of fire is bad, is creating unmanageable conditions in the forest. 94% of fires are suppressed before they reach 4 hectares of size. And, one of the examples that was provided was a 200,000 hectare fire, which caused $1.7 billion in immediate damage, but it actually creates an ongoing loss of benefits to the community that's been calculated to be $14 million a year, every year going forward because of that event. And so one of the things that they were really talking about during this conference is that fire is a part of the landscape. Our forest covered landscape is pretty much the highest natural land use out there. There used to be a lot more marshes, grasslands, things like that. So when a fire came rolling through, it would lose its energy when it hits these grasslands. And that's just not happening anymore. The work, the mechanical thinning, prescribed burns could take multiple generations to restore our forests. It took 150 years to get here. So it could take multiple generations to restore the forests. And it could take investments equal to what we spend on forest fire fighting every year. So province of British Columbia spent $1 billion last year. It could take that kind of a commitment annually going forward. And I think last year they budgeted something like $16 million for mitigation work. And I think the only other thing I want to touch on from that was that they mentioned that sort of an insurance and property value reckoning is coming. And, California's already seeing this, where, insurance companies are just walking away from doing home coverage for fire. So, fire smart assessments, the Voyant Alert System, mention them often. Going to continue mentioning them because we've got so many people that watch this YouTube stream. Everybody that does should be signed up for both. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toth. Okay, just to pick up on that, I attended 2 of the awakening ceremonies for the House of Clans earlier this month. And unfortunately, the unveiling of the pole has been postponed due to the death of an elder. So we send our condolences to the Joe family. It's Howard Joe that passed away, and I've already conveyed our sympathies to one of his nieces. So a lot of that'll be rescheduled along with the presentation by the author Robert Joseph that I was looking forward to attending. I was struck in driving, council knows I drove to Calgary, and I was struck by 2 things: how wonderful the province is and how scary elements of it are. I made a point of driving through Lytton. There's not much for Lytton, but they're starting to build. Coming back, I drove through the Coquihalla, and you'd be amazed how much damage has happened last year there. FCM, speaking of Voyant alerts, I woke up on the Thursday morning to an emergency alert that there was a water main burst, and please don't shower or bath in Calgary. That was the welcome to Calgary. I want to acknowledge the mayor of Calgary, who presumably got an alert several hours before we did, and who had to balance between being in work boots and standing in front of a bubbling giant 6-foot pipe, folks. Don't buy those on Amazon. And running back to the conference with 3,000 elected officials and giving the keynotes and then running back to the water main, and was quite impressed. It's clearly a reminder of the infrastructure issues that we're always addressing. And interesting, they took the opportunity to send robot cameras up and down. I think they found 4 more potential leaks. So instead of 5 days, we were told 5 days, apparently it'll be 5 to 7 weeks. Council would be interested that one of the key things that came out of the conference was that downloading is across Canada, and the downloading by provinces and by the feds. And FCM is promising to take a stronger role in advocating for municipalities. I'm dressed up today because I was on the 620 ferry, not recommended. And I was out to Green Timbers in Surrey for the Mayor's Forum with the RCMP, and a good chance to connect with several mayors from around the Lower Mainland. I did acknowledge it was nice to be considered part of the Lower Mainland as opposed to the Vancouver Island or the coast or something. I had some good discussions on the future of policing. And last but not least, sitting sort of waiting for the ferry, the Low Carbon Communities Committee of the GMF. I'm on that committee, and we are supporting 7 major cities across Canada as they roll out innovative carbon reduction, innovation, clever solutions. So, and then I came home on the Queen of Alberni. And if anybody has ever been on the Queen of Alberni, it's not like no other ferry. People were walking around lost. Couldn't find the doors, couldn't find the washroom, everything was, so on that note, it's been a long day. It was truly bizarre. Yep, a ferry is a ferry. Council, that completes the council reports. We have correspondence, which is on page 181. And this is a letter from, I guess it's the East Porpoise Bay Community Association, Tracy Noble. I did talk to the board yesterday at their invitation and had a good discussion. They are going to be doing some emergency planning odd type discussions at their annual annual summer picnic. They're gonna try and make that a theme for come to the picnic, but come ready to discuss how we can create those sort of things. July 20th. Yes, July 20th. Okay, so July page 181, we have the letter regarding Scotch Broom and some interesting observations in here about appointing inspectors and weed control officers, things that I must admit I was unaware of. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Shepherd.
Yeah, it raises the question, how do we deal with this? I think talking through it back and forth, it really came out from Diana Mumford, who noticed up in Half Moon Bay that there's a volunteer group who go around, gather up the broom, but there they have a property owner who has volunteered to allow people to dump the broom, and then in the fall, the fire department comes and burns it. So, what can we do? Because we have problems, different parts of the town. And I wonder if I could turn it over to staff, because I thought there was something percolating, some discussions. Thanks.
Percolate.
Thank you for the question. Yeah. It was our horticulturist that wrote a little bit more about it. It would be finding a Burns site that would be appropriate on district land. I don't believe the op center is the most ideal, but we would have to just be asked to do some research on a good spot for that. So there is the idea that we could compile all of the broom, and it would be easier for residents because right now, as you would have noticed in the email, the broom can go to the landfill, but it can't have any flowers on it. And there's a very short, limited amount of time where there's no flowering broom. So it can be laborsome, and when you're wanting to get rid of it, it's already bloomed. So you are able to do that in clear plastic bags. However, if council would like to direct staff to research sites to burn said broom, we would be happy to. Thank you.
Motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to take a look at options with for broom. Thank you.
Seconder? Yes, okay. Discussion, Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I have mixed feelings about this motion because I think it's one of those things that it's great that we're talking about finally getting, something in terms of options at getting rid of Scotch broom. Except that we've got Japanese knotweed, we've got giant hogweed, we have other invasive species that are also difficult to get rid of. And I think there's an opportunity for a wider conversation because at this time, other than somebody volunteering their property and then the Half Moon Bay Volunteer Fire Department sort of on the side taking care of it on somebody's private property, there really isn't any way of getting rid of it at all on the whole Sunshine Coast. And so I think it's, you know, if we want to have our staff look at this, we can. But I had a motion ready that would have asked us to ask the regional district to look at it, partnership-based solution in the 2025 budget process. So we could do both,
Well, we do
We
have a
could do
motion on
both.
the floor, so.
but yeah, anyways, mixed feelings, thanks.
Any other comments on this motion,
Yeah, the original motion, I think Counselor Shepherd introduced, is that the one? With staff's gonna have to go try to find a place to do it. I was wondering if the fire department's training facility in West Sechelt would be a good spot. That might be a consideration on Mason Road. It's very large. If anyone's seen it, right next to the bus area. So anyway, if staff hasn't already thought of that, there's an idea. And I'm prepared to support the motion. Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Carried. You need that? What? Yeah. Okay, great. Anything else? Not motion to adjourn. In favor? We're adjourned. Hi. Anybody online, by the way?